All right, Kirk, I'm passing you the ball, buddy. You're my geo go-to guy in the Middle East. Thanks for taking some time today before you leave for your poker championship.
Oh yeah, yeah. I might come back broke.
No, I don't think so. Let me ask you something though. When Chesapeake blew to the upside and your leaps doubled, did you sell half?
I sold about a third.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of like standard operating procedure. Then you have a free trade. The market's paid for your trade.
Right. Or made it very, 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 very cheap.
Yeah. Excellent call, buddy. So since we talked, of course, our embassy was moved to Jerusalem, and we had some violence there. And there have been some exchanges between Hezbollah and Israel. And you're talking about that. I didn't even know there was an attempted coup in Saudi Arabia. Why don't we start there?
All right. Well, so let's. They actually posted it on oilprice.com eventually. Back on April 21st, a couple of days before we talked last, I didn't know about it at the time. There was gunfire outside and inside the Royal Palace in Riyadh. And I actually found, it's not in here, but I actually found the Twitter feed that was reporting it live, and the YouTubes, some of the tinfoil hat guys, they actually get some things right once in a while, and they have it up on YouTube. So back on April 24th, it appears as if there was an attempted coup or a violent protest. And the rumor is, and it seems like this rumor has some legs, is that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was shot. And
okay, so then this is a reprisal for the crackdown that he imposed by, imprisoning people in luxury hotels.
Or not only that, Al Qaeda is not exactly pleased with him for giving women the right to drive and trying to create a more secular society. You have all sorts of princes who are pissed off that he's not letting them keep their stolen money. So, I don't know if Prince bin Salman is the right guy to try to lead the kingdom to a more secular, more prosperous for the rest of the people sort of society. On the surface, it looks like that's what he's doing. I think he's fighting with a lot of trends in Saudi Arabia, including Wahhabism. There's a lot working against him to try to transform that society. Now, so the question becomes, is he really trying to transform that society, or is he just trying to get the money for himself? Hard for us to know, right? But there is this huge conflict between Prince Mohammed bin Salman and his supporters and his father, and some of the disaffected princes and the extended family, the cousins, who were used to just scooping money out of Saudi Arabia's oil wealth for themselves, and now they can't do that quite as easily anymore, or maybe not at all, and maybe they're just living on what they have, which is certainly still millions. But yeah, it's interesting what's going on over there, and I will tell you, with everything that's going on, you once asked me, when do I think the conflict with Iran will come?
Yeah.
I think it happens before the midterm elections.
Okay, so interesting, there's a couple of things. Tell me what you think about this. A great uniter when there's strife and political division is a war, because, even the enemy of my enemy is my friend, even within nations. And that could be right around the time as well where Mueller releases something. So that makes sense. You think before the midterms. A lot of these wars also happen in September around the high holy days for both the Muslims and the Jews.
Right.
So yeah, and what do you think is going to be the catalyst? And is the U.S. involved initially, or is it just Israel, Saudi Arabia against Iran?
Well, remember way back when I said this. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we got it, buddy.
Okay. I way back last September, I said an Iran war is coming. And, if you take a look at the 730 comments on this article, and I will tell you, they are not all complimentary. And one of the things that I say in this article, no point in bringing it up, but one of the things I say in this article is that at some point Russia will shun or ignore or maybe even outright turn on Iran. And I think that if Iran really starts to, if they threaten one more time to produce nuclear material, I think that would be enough for the Israelis to bomb them.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I don't think they actually have to do it. I think they just have to threaten it one more time.
Okay. So let's talk about a little bit more recent history with the 8% plunge in a week from 72.80 that I nailed on a third drive. There are actually 3 drives up there. So one of the best calls I've made in a year. Do you think we have to do some more work? I was thinking maybe we could bounce back to around 68 or 70 and then have one more wave back down towards low 60s before we get going to the upside. You're talking about this upcoming OPEC meeting. Maybe that's enough to at least generate a correction in this recent rout. Or are you looking for just a blast to new highs from these levels here?
I'm not a good enough trader to know that. I was watching Dan Dicker, who I've appeared on his show on Bloomberg the other day, and he said, most of the negativity in oil is getting priced in right now. Could it bounce down twice? Sure, it could bounce down twice. It could drop a little. It's dropping a little today. It could rise up, on a relief rally and then test the bottoms. I've been looking at low 60s. I think that's what you're looking at as the ultimate bottom. That makes a lot of sense. But here's the thing that I will point out is the same people who are like uber bearish on oil are the same people that were uber bearish on oil when it was 48 and 44 and 46. The reality is that the 5-year average has been met. Granted, the 5-year average is a little higher right now because of the push in oil production by OPEC a few years ago. So, could oil inventories stand to come down even a little further? Yes. The Russians and the Saudis and the rest of OPEC know that. I don't think you're going to see a sudden surge of 1 million barrels into the markets. I mean, these tweets by President Trump, I just can't tell you how ineffectual they are on policy around the world. You've got the Europeans who are like, we're sick of this guy. President Trudeau is like, I've had enough of this guy. There has to be a number of resolutions that come soon. Otherwise, you're actually going to get some of these negative outcomes, these unintended consequences that people worry about, whether it's from trade or oil policy. But let's keep our eye on the ball here. What's going on in Russia? Russia increased production by 70,000 barrels a day already at one of their facilities. So, you take a look at that, and then you take a look at the bottlenecks in the Permian, which are going to cap production for a year or a year and a half.
Venezuela.
But then you have Venezuela falling off. You're probably going to get at least 300,000 to 600,000 barrels come off of the international markets from Iran. If Iran does anything that violates the nuclear deal, that means the UN will put on sanctions. And what has India said? India has said, well, we're not going to follow the U.S. sanctions, but if the UN says something, then we're going to cut off Iran. So, Iran's in a real hard spot. I don't know how this resolves for them. I honestly, unfortunately.
Don't you think, we were talking about Saudi Arabia and the U.S. Leadership needing solidarity and everyone backs their leader if there's a hot conflict.
Right.
Doesn't Iran need a war too, with what's happening on the ground compared to, things have not quieted down. Things are getting worse for their people. You've talked about this revolution that could happen from inside out. Do you think it would continue, or people would, unite? That would unite people if there was a conflict.
Sadly, I think you're onto something there. You take a look at the leadership in all three countries, and Israel too, and in Russia, right? So Russia, Israel, United States, Iran, um, Saudi Arabia, and you take a look at the leadership in all five countries, and it's horrible to say this, but the most rational leadership might be in Saudi Arabia. So, a war makes a lot of sense. And not that it's ethically good, not that we want it to happen. It's just with who's in charge and the position that everybody's put themselves in, it looks like it's coming.
Okay. Do you think John Bolton listens to Michael Bolton records?
Yeah, you would think, right? That's how he finds balance. It's like meditation.
So, Kirk, I also noticed you were talking about, I don't know, you're looking for some major rally in wireless stocks. Is that something else outside of oil? That you're not just a one-trick pony, that you're looking at some other things? Am I correct?
I started out as a technology guy. I just realized, and okay, so back in college, late 80s, early 90s, I had some fantastic professors, Israelis, Chinese, Americans, British. I had some great professors at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, which at the time wasn't looked at as a major university, and now it's getting there. And the reality is that they taught me about oil and technology and the Middle East and all these things. And for years early in my career, oil wasn't a big deal, right? It was all tech in the 90s.
Right.
So I learned tech. And about 1999, I had this come to God moment. Actually, it was late 1998 when I saw Jimmy Rogers on CNBC talking about we're in a bubble and you need to sell everything and start looking for commodities. So
Yeah.
I'm standing there in a towel after getting out of the shower, hearing him say this on CNBC, and the three talking heads on CNBC laugh at him. I'm like, well, okay, here's a guy who's a 37-year-old self-made billionaire who does whatever he wants, and then three guys on TV trying to hawk stories. I'm going to listen to the little guy in the bow tie. And so I got into commodities, and two of my very first oil stocks were Petrobras and Occidental Petroleum. And, I rolled those up, and, I got hooked, and I started reading books, and I was like, oh my God, oil controls almost everything in the world economy at the time. And that's still important, right? Oil's still super important. I think technology controls things more now, but oil's still super important and will be for another decade or two. But as you come to the end of these cycles, these super cycles, right?
Yeah.
Any super cycle in history, whether it's the collapse of an empire or a massive change in technology, a revolution, an industrial revolution, whatever, you usually get violence. And I hate to say that it's innate in mankind to not be able to handle change well, but I don't think mankind handles change well. And that's why in my investment letter, I focus on change. If you can handle change well, you're going to do incredibly well financially, probably live a more balanced life. And so when I cover this stuff, whether it's tech or whether it's oil, we need to cover change. So what's going on in tech right now is the pace, the acceleration of change is just amazing right now. We have an upward bending curve, and I don't even know if half the world recognizes it, because the younger people are living in technology land, and just what's next is next for them. They don't get that 20 years ago, I still had a phone that was attached to the wall. So, and I grew up
20 years ago, we had, there were Quotrons.
Right.
To get your prices. Right. And you call your orders in. or
Right.
you would teletype them in. Yeah. So you're saying this curve is becoming parabolic. Is that with things like AI, machine learning, and the Brave New World?
Right. So the article that I wrote this week that you're referring to is the smart everything world can make you smart rich. And I wrote it that way because my friends on the East Coast from Boston are going to like the way that I say smart to them. But, they're going to make you smart rich. But, you know,
You're like
I do.
Matt Damon, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to be.
All right.
So, I wish I could have his girlfriends and money. But, you
After the
know,
tournament, man, or after
uh,
you cash out the rest of your Chesapeake
uh,
calls, I bet you'll have at least a few groupies hanging on you.
I am going down with a couple extra bucks this year.
All right.
So the smart everything world does come with a warning, and I put in some of the things to be warned. We have to worry about. Stephen Hawking said a few things before he died. Um, Talks about AI. It's not that the AI decides to hate us; it just decides that they can do better without us. And that's what we have to be aware of, is that we have to make sure that AI is on our side and it says, oh, always humans first. So I go through all these things that are coming, Internet
I
of
just
Things.
want to interrupt you because we do have, people listening to us, and I actually someone in our webinar, Savash
Okay.
Yafta, I lives in Iran. He says, "Hi Dale, I'm living in Iran. There are some sit in strike happening right now. So they're having sit-in strikes right now on the ground.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's saying, so the chance of some kind of revolution is high.
Yeah. Well,
That's
and I
from
think,
the ground in Iran.
yeah, and I was just sitting with an Iranian dissident not too long ago that I know here in Milwaukee, and and then a professor whose brother is a dissident. I'll tell you, to go back to bouncing back and forth here like a Super
Yeah,
Bowl.
that's
What's going
great.
on?
I'm a Gemini.
um, I'm an Aquarius, and I don't even know what that means, but so I know, and we can ask him in Iran. So I have the take that most Iranian people are just people, right? I mean, there's not this whole country of people that want to kill us, which is what some of the right wingers here think. The reality is you got a lot of people there who just want to live a happy life. They want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness,
Right.
and they're not getting it. And you've got this overbearing religious government uh, that that
For 50 years now, 2 generations.
yeah, four is it 50 already?
The
2020?
70s, right?
Yeah,
Almost,
79,
almost.
40 years
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
So, you know, obviously there's whole volumes of books written on this stuff. But, I think the day is coming when the Iranian people get their country back. And I hope it's with as little violence as possible. I have said I hope that the Ayatollah just walks away. But, the prevailing theory, the reason why we did the nuclear deal, right? And this will irritate people who are, oh, worst deal in history. Well, the reason they did the nuclear deal is because the Ayatollah is pretty old. So if he dies, hopefully at that point, the more moderate forces decide, hey, this is our chance to separate government from religion. And there's a huge movement there to do that.
I never thought of that 10-year window. So
Yeah, I
they were
mean,
kind of projecting the mortality of this regime.
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great insight.
So, you know, I don't know that we have to have a war with Iran. I don't think we have to. I don't think there has to be a war with Iran. I just think it's going to happen because I think that Netanyahu, I think that the Saudis, I think that President Trump. I just think that there's too many people pushing in a direction, and they have conflicts of interest that are massive, right? I mean, we've got
Mike Pompeo has been in favor of a strike against Iran for a long time.
right. He would have just bombed them, whatever it
10
was,
years
7, 8,
ago.
9, 10 years. Yeah, a long time
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I still maintain that President Obama's biggest mistake was during the Green Revolution that he didn't support
Support
them
it.
more fully. Oh yeah, because if we had sent in special forces just to do a couple things, and then targeted the IRGC all over the Middle East, and along their borders and their facilities and in the Gulf, I think that revolution would turn to something different. Now, I'm not the greatest geopolitical analyst on the military side because I don't know if that could have worked. At this point, you have the IRGC all over the Middle East and Iraq and Syria, and now they're spread out. So, I mean, maybe that is part of what's going on here is we needed to get their military in a, back on their heels position. I don't know. But,
Okay.
I pray for the people in Iran. I think that they can be a great piece of the world community. I just think that they're being held back from that right now. And unfortunately, you've got some very mean, motivated to be mean people that they're dealing with.
Okay, why don't we wrap it, Kirk, with, I'm looking at your sheet right here, and it's of interest to a lot of people. And you talk about blockchain here and
Yep.
cryptocurrencies. So I'm assuming that, perhaps maybe, you may not be bullish on cryptocurrencies, but you see the future of blockchain, and that's something that people should be looking to invest in. Ideas on that?
I don't have any companies to give you right now, but
Okay.
blockchain and the Internet of Things. Put those two together, BIOT. That is the future.
Okay.
The blockchain is going to connect at the edge, and then take it to wherever you need it to get taken to. Blockchain is going to control processes, communications, transactions, monitor inventories, do automatic restocking. Blockchain is going to control a lot of processes in the world in the not too distant future because of the direct ledger style accountability, right? So it's essentially non-hackable. Are you going to get a few bad actors on those ledgers? Yeah, eventually. But for the most part, this is going to take internet security. It's going to take just a massive leap forward. We're going to be able to eliminate most hacking.
Interesting. So is this a tool that Orwell and Huxley saw coming as part of the dystopia, this type of control that's blockchain assists more government control, or as a lot of people in crypto think, the democratization of finance?
Right. So I don't think it's going to be democratization of finance because ultimately the banking structures and institutions are so strong and the governments of the world don't want to lose control of the currencies. And I think it's actually important that they don't, because if we went to a straight cryptocurrency society, that essentially is just a barter system. And that's bad.
Right.
You get a barter system, then you are very susceptible to the business cycle, massive swings. Think about the example that you had in Econ 101 with the cigarettes in the prison. We've all heard that example, right?
Right.
So or the way the Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Oz was written about the banking system in the late 1800s. So when you take a look at how barter societies work, you realize that growth is non-existent, and in fact, you're more susceptible to depressions. So I don't think cryptocurrency is going to become that big of a deal from the standpoint of what it looks like today. What eventually will happen with cryptocurrencies is that there will be cryptocurrencies that the banking system use and that the central banks allow and that the governments allow, and they'll be used for wire transactions and other types of transactions that you want instantaneous. I mean, let me ask you something. If you do a wire transaction right now, do you have the money in 5 seconds? No, you
No.
have to wait. You have to wait hours on a wire transaction.
Right.
That the banks want to use blockchain to change that to make wire transactions instantaneous, right?
Okay.
Why are ACH transactions overnight, right? Why can't that be
Right.
right now? Why can't I go bank to bank, bam, snap of a finger. Blockchain will be used for that. There will be a cryptocurrency. Okay, I'm going to give you one stock. I'm going to give you one stock, and this isn't going to be a fast-moving one, but you can trade it a little bit. But in 10 years, I bet it's a 10-bagger. PayPal. PayPal has got some patents that
And someone else likes XRP.
I don't know much about them.
Yeah. Okay.
But
All right. Well, okay.
PayPal's already huge in processing transactions, and
Okay.
if they don't get bought out,
Yeah, they charge a lot too.
but that's going to change because they have blockchain patents that are
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah.
So they're a big deal. PayPal might do what Visa and MasterCard did in the last 10 years.
Interesting. Yeah, it's pushing 52-week highs here. I'd like to thank you for being here, and let's close this interview with Nostra Spanos. Where could oil go to if your prediction or hope not to be manifest reality does happen with a conflict with Iran? Where does oil spike to, in your view, by the end of the year?
I think we probably see a little bit over 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There are breakout levels out there that are huge, right? You can see 140, 150, 160, 170. I think that because it'll be going into winter and demand will be a little bit lower, because you're going to see a little bit of the bottleneck breakdown, just a little bit in the Permian, not much, because that really doesn't happen until next year. Saudi Arabia and Russia have some spare capacity. I think that 80 is a given. I think that 100 to 120 is probable. We're in a very uncertain period right now. I could be very wrong about this war, but man, it just doesn't look
I
like
hope you are.
So
but you know what? We have to look at the signs around us and be prepared. And ignorance is bliss. Sometimes I wish I could just stick my head in the sand, but we're here to assess every day. And if things change, we'll change our mind. W.D. Gann said, if you don't learn how to change your mind, you won't have any change left. But so far, a lot of your forecasts have been spot on. Your calls have been great, Kirk. And thanks again for joining us and updating us on what you see happening. And we'll wrap it with what Andrew G. said. Netanyahu delivered an ominous sounding message a few days. He talked up the spirit of the Iranian people while talking down the regime. It sounded like an explanation for an invasion.
Well, President Trump did the same thing, right?
Yeah. Anyway, let's have you back around Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Ramadan. Pick the holiday in September, buddy, and let's get back together. And good luck in Vegas. And
thank you.
Enjoy. And thanks again, my trading warrior brother. Everyone, thank Kirk Spanos. You could follow him at Kirk Spano. Kirk, you have
there it
you
is.
can find his stuff. Okay, so you have a website now. This is a website.
Yeah, been around a while.
Oh, okay.
Fundamentaltrends.com.
Uh-huh.
And if you want, I am doing a weekly webinar now, inspired by you, because I have so much fun here. So if you really want to get enough of me, I've got a YouTube page as well as here. And if anybody really wants to subscribe, use the code 200 off, the number 200 OFF, and first year is only 199 bucks. And you'll make it back on one trade, one position. Now, I will tell you, I'm a position trader. If you don't have the patience for longer term trades, you can swing trade my stuff all you want, but I leave that up to individuals, because a lot of the people who subscribe, they shouldn't be swing trading. But I know that people on this call, most of you could do it. So the gains that you can make on my stocks, which generally have an upward trend, but you can channel trade them, man, you guys probably kill it.
Yeah, you ought to interview that guy Dale Pinkert on one of your webinars.
I think I might do that.
All right, well, I'm his agent. Just like Donald Trump was his own agent calling people. My name's Don Jackson, and Dale Pinkert's been doing a lot of interviews lately, getting great responses and
Are
making great
are
fortunes.
you with the law firm Dewey, Cheatham and Howell?
Thank you so much, bro.
All
Good
right, take
hunting.
care.
Good
Thank you
hunting,
very
Kirk.
much. You
All
too.
right, everyone, that's our wrap up for Wednesday. You're very welcome. Kirk was better than Jim Rickards, Martin. Enjoy the day. I have a guy who wrote a book about all the millions of dollars he made in the market for tomorrow. And I'll see you guys. Good hunting. And most of all, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. Martin, it's okay, buddy. I still love you. Adios, and thank you again, Kirk.
Take care.